Hello everyone, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. Once a month I am inspired by real-world products to sit down and create my own paper crafting goodies. This is part of my design team work over at the Counterfeit Kit Challenge. They call it Forgery on the 4th. I call it my monthly makes. So you saw a peek at the inspiration. Let's go ahead and dive in. The very first thing that I was inspired by with this particular Simple Stories kit were these pieces. And while these pieces focus on the months of the year, I would like my pieces to focus on the days of the week. And that is a great reason why you should try making your own products. So let me gather some supplies and we'll start working. I have another project coming up for you on the 6th. And this is a little sneak peek at some of what's going on with that project. I have a specific color palette that I'm working with. These markers are playing a prominent role in that color palette. I have swatched them out already to kind of see how their tones match up with my other inks. I am matching them up using my color binder, and if you haven't seen me put this together, I will link you up to that as well. And so taking a look and comparing these colors to my ink pad colors, I did come up with a couple of choices. So I am working with Concord and Ninth Poppy, Gina K. Wild Dandelion, Concord and Ninth Blueberry, and Concord and Ninth Powder. I will be using my little foam daubers to create this project. And I have one single piece of sticker paper left to try and work on. I am going to do some practicing on this piece of cardstock first. I know the ink won't behave the same on cardstock as it does on the sticker paper, but that will give me a little bit of practice. I do want to clean up my daubers just a little bit to try and get the truest color possible. So here is the basic idea. I want to create elongated spots of color using my daubers. And I've got a sample blue, light blue going on first. This is a new dauber, so I want to ink it up fairly well. Of course, wherever you touch your dauber down first, you're going to get darker color. So I like to try and very gently bring it to the paper to spread the color before I set it completely down. Okay, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Now let's try some writing. I've pulled out a few different writing pens that I want to experiment with. These are my favorite. This is the Pentel Fude Touch brush marker. And what I love about this pen is that the nib is sturdy yet super flexible, and you can get very fine and very wide lines. So hold it up straight, you get very fine, push it down, and you get wide lines. So I love this pen, and I have two colors. They do come in a variety of colors. I also want to give a try to a traditional calligraphy pen, and then I have my white Posca pen, which is a paint marker, and that means I can do white on top of color. It is a very fine tip though, and I'm not sure that I want that fine of a look. So let's experiment a little bit with these. As you can see, I have done a little bit of practicing here. Right away, I don't think my Posca pen is thick enough for the look that I want, so that one's out. And then I did play around with the calligraphy pen. This is all calligraphy pen, and then I switched over to my Fude pen, which is all of these and these hearts. And if you'll notice on the inspiration, there are some hearts, and I definitely want to make some of those as well. And this is the winner. This has been my favorite pen for a while, so I'm gonna go with this. Now that we've had some time to experiment, let's go ahead and make the real thing. Working with lighter colors means you have to be more patient and add more layers. So I've got plenty of zones for my days of the week, and I'm going to start making zones for those sketchy hearts. Let's try some words. So the best tips if you don't like your handwriting: 1, practice. 2, a very good tool that helps add style to your writing. And 3, go slow and steady. So having a good tool can make handwriting a lot better, a lot more interesting. Because this Fude pen can do thick and thin lines, I am going to use that deliberately. So I'm going to start thin when I'm on an upstroke or a side stroke, and then I'm going to add more pressure to make it thick on the downstroke. So thin and pressure to make it thick. And doing a little practice here with the hearts before I work on letters is going to help me when I get to the words. And I got an even thicker line over here by not only putting more pressure, but tipping my pen more sideways. I do see a little feathering and bleeding on this paper, but I'm going to have to live with it because it is what it is. I'm going to start with the word Monday. So again, upstroke thin, downstroke thick, thin, thick. The other thing I noticed about the inspiration is that the sizes of the letters are such that they kind of tuck next to each other. So you can see I have this really tall M. I think I'm going to make my O a little bit smaller so that it tucks in next to my M. And then N can wrap around the end. So light upstroke, heavy down, light up. So I've got my N. And now I have this little nook where my D can tuck. So heavy downstroke, light, and then heavy. Now I noticed on the A's, which I really liked, was that they were shorter on one side than the other. And that makes sense as the D curves, the bottom of the D is kind of right here as opposed to way down here. So light upstroke, heavy down, make it longer. DA, and then the Y has more curve to it than I expected. So there's my Y. So yes, I didn't quite make it all the way to the end, but I'm okay with that, and I'm hoping that I can improve my spacing as I keep working. I feel like I don't have enough room here, so I will add some more space. Just try to blend it in. Yes, it looks like a darker color, but it will dry back a little bit lighter. Now, if you're not comfortable with your own handwriting, using a stamp set is a great way to create your own embellishments. And I so happen to have a set that's got pencils, paper clips, push pins. These are all icons that were in this pattern paper, as well as some of the embellishments. So I'm going to make my own stickers using these icons. Remember, if you don't have an ink color that you would like to use, try using a marker. You can ink up your stamps pretty easily with a marker. Plus, using markers is a great way to get more than one color on a single image. So now I have some two-toned push pins. Don't forget that you can also use markers as kind of what their original intent was, and that is to color things in. So I'm going to add a little more detail to my pencils, and it doesn't need to be perfect. So that is our final look at this set of sticker embellishments. I will go ahead and fussy cut these out with a pair of sharp scissors. So I'm cutting these out with a little bit of a white halo. That makes them look more like a manufactured sticker. I won't cut everything out now. I will cut them out when I need them and want to use them. I have one more idea for you, so let's move on to that. Next up, I really love these message board images. I don't own any embellishments that look like that, so I'd love to create my own. To get started, I want some black cardstock, and I just pulled out pieces from my scrap bin. And I want some brown cardstock to create the frames around the message boards. I will be handwriting my messages on there, just like in the last segment. However, if you don't want to do handwriting, feel free to dig through your stash and see if you can find some smaller sized letter stickers, and then you can size your project to your stickers. For instance, if you wanted to write the word hello, you can start by choosing your letters, placing them on a temporary sheet like leftover plastic or a piece of parchment paper, and then lining them up on your black to see how big you need your pieces to be. Since I'm just going to handwrite mine, I'm just going to create mine in some standard size, and I will determine what that will be. I need to cut a black piece and then a brown piece in a larger size to create a border. Majority of my pieces, I chose my black to be 2 inches wide by 3 inches tall because that fit my black scraps the best to get the most out of it. And I've made my brown frame to be 1/4 inch wider on each side. So this ends up being 2 1/4 wide by 3 1/4 tall, and that leaves a good size border to scale. I have a leftover piece that isn't quite that wide, so I get one more piece out of the scraps, even though it isn't exactly the same size. For the next step of creating these message boards, we need to draw lines across to give the impression of the grooves that the message letters press into. I find this is very helpful to do with a clear ruler. I should have just made a paper jig where you just line up the jig with the line and then trace along the edge, move it and trace and move it and trace. You can notice from a couple of these that some of my lines didn't go too smoothly. I noticed I did start getting crooked as I was working, and that's probably just the visual difference between looking at the far end of the ruler versus looking at the near end of the ruler. So I'm going to start decorating these with handwriting, and I think I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to do "Here we are," and I'm going to put "we" in about the middle. And I'm going to make, let's see, if I make it 1, 2, 3 lines tall, skip a line, and then do 1, 2, 3 lines tall. Maybe skip 2 lines, 1, 2, 3, skip 2 lines, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I think that spacing will work. So "here we" is my middle word. How do I want to form my letters? I think I'm going to go with more of a block style letter. Oh, I was going to use the Posca pen for this. Oh well, here we are doing this. Here we are. And then I'm going to cover up that boo-boo with a black pen. It won't be perfect, but it will help. There we go. That actually looks okay. So I'm going to thicken up those lines. I may add some doodles, like hearts. Right, here we are with the last of the creation of these. I did go ahead and leave one blank so that I could put in a phrase as it comes up through my crafting, but I'm enjoying how these came out. I did look at the inspiration and they had colorful hearts and stars. What's nice about the white pen is that you can color over it with a color, And now that color will show up on top of black. I think I might want to go ahead and color the hearts because it's running into the letters. Okay, there we go. I think that looks pretty cute. I would probably be a little more careful with the coat of white I put before I add color on top of it. And I definitely like the extra white outline because it helps it read and pop a little bit better. So that was it. That is my makes for this month. I'm happy with how everything came out, and I will be back on the 6th to create one more kit and project, and I will use some of these supplies with that. So I hope you will come back then. And until then, I hope you have an artful day.